This episode is brought to you by Experian. Are you paying for subscriptions you don't use, but can't find the time or energy to cancel them? Experian could cancel unwanted subscriptions for you, saving you an average of $270 per year and plenty of time. Download the Experian app. Results will vary. Not all subscriptions are eligible. Savings are not guaranteed. Paid membership with connected payment account required.
What do you think about the Laker team now?
You follow the box scores of the games every day?
Just the Lakers.
You're kidding. That is really a compliment. I was pleased to see you smile at the top of our show because once the game starts, you have a game face. You don't smile much out there.
I don't think you have to do things for money anymore.
Correct.
What's up, Laker fans? Welcome to the Laker Film Room podcast. I'm Pete, joined by Darius. And yesterday, Team USA had a bit of a slow motion blowout. It was a game where they went down early. It was like 10-2 to start out. And then AD came in the game and they went on a big old run that was partially due to AD, but a lot of KD certainly in that stretch too. Just an incredible performance by KD, by LeBron. And they just kept kind of increasing the lead over the course of the game. Serbia really tried to pack the paint and be like, you're going to have to beat us with jumpers today. And Team USA did. And so talk to me about Team USA's victory in the opening game of the Olympics.
Yeah, it's interesting. The games count now. And we talked about this on the pod where we were discussing LeBron and AD within the context of Team USA. And I think there's more meat on the bone there that we'll probably get to over the rest of the tournament as well. But really wanted to dive in today to sort of talk about this team in general. And that 10-2 run to start the game, I thought was indicative of a couple of things. One is I thought the team looked a little nervous or was like getting there, not quite nervous, but there was like an anxiousness about this game counts now.
And this isn't super uncommon in games, even in games that end up being blowouts for the winning team, right? There is a certain amount of feeling each other out. This is true in boxing and in combat sports as well. That first little engagement is a little like, okay, I'm getting used to being on this court, in this environment, in this situation. Always a feeling out process.
Totally. I also think that, and I don't want to turn this into like some bashing of Joel Embiid, but I am interested in the fit of that starting group specifically, and really the sort of lack of size from the perimeter players, and then using LeBron and Embiid as your main backline defense. And I wanted to sort of volley this to you very early because this is a bit of a formula that Lakers fans should be pretty familiar with. Less so with AD flanking LeBron, but still, this counts. But more so in some of the units that we saw early in the season where the Lakers were playing a lot of guards. And then in the LeBron-led bench groups with maybe just LeBron and Christian Wood. Right? Mm-hmm. Where it's like, okay, we've got some stuff to work here offensively, but defensively, at least on the back line, I think this is the most stressed LeBron is going to be defensively is with this starting group, even though they're starting Drew Holiday. And Devin Booker's a good perimeter defensive player, but it's like 3, 6, 5 and under guys. And then Embiid, who is not the most mobile big. He's massive, and I think he takes up a ton of space around the basket. And I think he's useful in that regard, but he is not the rangy defensive player that Bam and AD are. And it's a different defensive look. And I'm interested to see if this group continues to sort of have its ups and downs.
I think it will. I think basketball's so interesting that you could put, 5 all-star level players and above level players together and have it be consistently and have it consistently not work because of certain flaws in them. And I think you're kind of zeroing in, especially on the defensive end of reasons why is I think that in terms of putting personnel out there that can play good defense, it's sort of a game of whack-a-mole for a coach between foot speed and size, right? You can either be really fast, you can be either really big. It's hard to be both. And sometimes you make decisions leaning toward one or the other. There are some ways to get the best of both worlds. I'd say in some respects, relative to the insane level of talent on Team USA, this is sort of the worst of both worlds because from you're small in the backcourt from Steph Drew at the 3 Booker perspective, right? There's other teams can beat that with size. And then in the front court, and I would throw Steph into this too, just between LeBron, Embiid, and Steph, there's a foot speed, like on a play-to-play issue, right? Obviously, LeBron, when he turns it up, Steph, when he's running off of a screen, can still create separation, of course. But from a rotating on defense and pressuring and, jabbing this way and getting back that way, from a foot speed perspective, that's a fairly slow starting group, especially for a team that's starting 3 guards, right? That's supposed to be a benefit of starting 3 guards. It's like, hey, we're going to have a fast unit, but overall that unit is not fast.
Well, 2 of the guards are power guards, right? So Holiday and Booker are really strong guards, and it's hard to knock them off of their space. And I think that that's useful if you're going to be smaller, at least be strong, right? But it's like, they're splitting the baby to a certain extent, right? It's just we're starting our biggest big dude, and LeBron is clearly their most physical forward. Like, one of the ways that they've been winning on offense, I think, particularly late in the game against Germany, is they were spamming that LeBron-Steph pick and roll, and they're like, hey, if you're not going to leave Steph, LeBron's just going to get downhill, and then your help is going to not be effective against this, our biggest, strongest wing, just going right into the chest of these backline defenders. And if you switch, then suddenly Dennis Schroeder is on LeBron James, and he was just taking him down to the block and scoring. I think LeBron's physicality in that regard is like, oh, we've got Embiid, who's massive, and we've got our most physical power, wing guy in LeBron. And so there's a strength element that I think that starting group brings, but that does come at the expense of quickness and the ability to change ends quickly. I thought it was telling that in the lead up to the tournament, after all of the exhibition games were done, one of the things that Kerr was talking about was we're not running as hard in transition defensively and some stuff like that. I think Kerr was trying to just poke the bear a little bit and understanding
part of his job.
Hey, it's part of the motivation tactic or whatever. But in groups where you've got Embiid and LeBron, and if those guys go to the offensive glass or are lingering around the paint, and I would say the same is true for Anthony Davis. We've seen this with the Lakers at times. If he finds himself behind the play, he is not the dude that is always going to be able to just out-sprint the big who's running hard in front of him. So I'll be interested to see how things go defensively with that group, and if they're able to leverage their physical tools with their strength in order to beat some of these teams. Because I do think against certain opponents, that strength will be important. But on some nights, I think it's going to be against South Sudan, for example, it's going to be tricky because those dudes are run and jump athletes who are really trying to speed the game up.
You got to run the floor against them. Absolutely. If you don't, they're going to get those trailer threes, dunks in transition. Yeah, no, that's and they got that 90-79 win against Puerto Rico yesterday. Do you think that the starters' woes can be resolved with the lineup change? And can you do that without disrupting a pretty good thing that they've got going off the bench?
Well, I'll be interested. I think we'll get into this a little bit more in the second part of the pod where we talk about offense, but I'm interested to see what happens with the Devin Booker position and whether or not they scale up there. Kerr has been pretty adamant that they're not going to change out Embiid. So Embiid played under 12 minutes, I think, against Serbia. And I think AD and Bam are going to continue to get the bulk of the center minutes just because they're so much better defensively than Embiid is. So I don't expect Embiid to be pulled. So if Steph, LeBron, and AD are fixture starters, and I think that they are, I think they need Drew Holiday then in that case, because he is by far their best point of attack defender. And he's the guy who can take so much of the burden off of Steph defensively, which I think is super important. And so the next position up is with Devin Booker. And Booker, I thought, played well against Serbia. I thought that he turned down a 3 or 2 very early in the game and was quick to like try to get into his mid-range, very Phoenix Sun style, like I'm Devin Booker. And then he realized, wait, the shot that's here for me is this semi-open, semi-contested 3. If I just take this shot, and it went in a couple of times, and suddenly, like, I think it was an important stepping stone towards that Durant group where Durant just started to go off. So let's take a break here, because when we come back, I want to dive into more the Booker, Durant, and then that Jayson Tatum question that is lingering out there after he got a DNP. So I move your question back to you, Pete, because I didn't even answer it, which is the starting lineup question. And Durant was so good. Do you think that Durant should start, and how do you see it playing out? Or do you even agree with my premise about Booker being potentially the odd man out?
Like you said, you didn't answer it, but you led me right to the place that I wanted to go, which is, to put it simply, I think if you wanted to make that group better without messing up the bench, you replace Booker with Derek White. I think he gives you a higher level of defensive motor and defensive playmaking while being able to play on or off of the ball. I don't think that starting group needs another offensive player that's the level of Booker, but I think that it'd be White and Holiday there, right? And I think I thought KD, the thing that, I mean, obviously when he plays like that, he's going to help any team in any scheme in any game, right? But the Bam and AD duo, and I think this has Lakers applications too. Having just a bucket getter next to them in the front court in that third spot, I think really helps alleviate some of the offensive concerns. Because when AD came into the game initially, they went on a 13-0 run. At some point during that run, Bam came in, and Serbia kept helping off of the corner where Bam was. And Bam didn't really want to take that corner 3, but it really kind of gunked up the works in ways where, if we have designs of playing AD and Vando together a lot this year, we're going to have to figure out some of that geometry, because that's going to be Jared Vanderbilt in the corner instead of Bam, right? And so Serbia went on a little run during this stretch because they weren't getting very good offense. But when KD checked into the game, it was lights out. And so I think that group needs a little more offense. So to me, like Booker off the bench with KD, and then Bam and AD kind of holding it down at the 4 and 5 defensively while providing the offense that they do. I think that's sort of the mix that they could get to. But yeah, that's sort of where I go for that. But I know you have an angle on the offensive end you want to get to.
Well, it's interesting because let's continue and pull on that Derek White string. We were just talking about collective size, and they get smaller and less physical in pulling Booker for White. Like, do you think that would be a challenge there?
But I don't think it's size that they're lacking in that starting group. I'm talking about just the starting group. Embiid's massive, right? LeBron's a 4. He's a big dude.
Sure.
Obviously, they've got the 3 guards. But what I'm saying is that if you're going to do it, I think, and Steph is one of those 3 guards, the other 2 guards need to be your best defenders that can still, not warp the floor from their spacing standpoint.
So, yes. Question for you then. Why are you not turning to Jayson Tatum? So Tatum is a potentially all-league defensive player. He's 6'9", 6'10". He's rangy. He's got ball skills. He's a power wing. He's a natural small forward.
Yeah.
But yet your instinct was to go towards White instead of Tatum. And I'm not necessarily disagreeing with all that White brings. And he is more of a low usage player. And I think that has its benefits for sure. But Tatum could play within a team scheme.
Absolutely. He totally could. That's totally a direction that you could go in. I think that White is a more natural off-ball player. And that's what they need in those spots, because just between Embiid, LeBron, Steph, to an extent, he's not on the ball, but you are definitely running plays for him and trying to get him the ball. And so I don't think that next guy needs to be a usage guy. So, but if you want, like, Tatum can defend, he can get back on defense, help on the boards, right? Anything you need in that respect. But I think that White is also going to run the floor like a guard. He'll help you in catch and shoot situations. I just think he's a better fit, while I think Tatum could be probably part of a really nasty defensive front line with that bench group as well. But if you wanted to go the Tatum route, that's fine too.
I'm just interested because Tatum didn't play. And he's one of the best players on the team. Like, you could argue, and I don't even think it's an argument, he's better than both of his Celtics teammates, right? Just as an individual player.
Yes.
He kicked Kevin Durant's ass a couple of years ago, in the playoffs, and he's the only player on this team that made first team All-NBA. His team just won the championship, and he easily could have won finals MVP. Like, it went to Jaylen Brown, and Jaylen Brown was great. And so don't get me wrong, but Tatum's a good player. He's probably widely considered one of the 10 best players in the world.
He's a good player and he should be playing. I think that this speaks though to, remember Alex Caruso's point about like, you got to understand the job. And this isn't saying that Tatum doesn't understand anything. Just
sure.
There's a certain, like, Tatum is the 1A, 1B on ball guy on his team. And he's able to play off of the ball. He's an excellent defender, great rebounder for his position, right? Excellent all-around player. But from you are an on-ball versus off-ball type of guy, like LeBron has seniority, and he's been freaking great, by the way. It's not like some, he's been there and it's LeBron. You can't take LeBron. No. LeBron's been part of why this team's been really good. And so I think there's just a couple of guys still ahead of him in the pecking order. That said, I think it's kind of silly that he got a DNP. I'm not trying to defend that necessarily, but I do think that that's part of it, is that there are other guys kind of ahead of him at what he does at his position.
It's interesting because I think it's right that you're singling out LeBron and KD as being like, well, these are the dudes that play Tatum's position. They've been better. Look how good KD was. You've got no argument from me there. This is why I was targeting Booker in this discussion.
Sure.
So Holiday's basically a guard. And Booker,
you got to play Drew
a
Holiday.
guard.
Like, he's going to play, right? He's one of those, he's so unique and good at what he does that you kind of got to write him in stone and as a big part of the rotation.
He is the low usage defensive genius. So he's the low offensive usage player, but he can still make a three. He can handle the ball. He can do all of that stuff. He's like guard Anthony Davis for this team.
Yeah.
Right. And so, of course, I'm going to advocate for Drew Holiday. I think that he should play. To me, it's a discussion about Tatum versus Devin Booker. So Booker is starting at small forward for this team. And you just made a pretty convincing argument for Kevin Durant. Now I'm going to make the opposite one in a second. For Kevin Durant to continue to come off the bench because of how he slots next to AD and Bam as like the offensive bridge between their own defensive genius that basically shuts off the paint against most every team. And so Booker to me is the guy that if I looked at what Devin Booker did yesterday, which was run the floor, be the second best perimeter defensive player in the starting lineup, shoot spot up threes, and be a second side or third side shot creator, right? Because if you look at LeBron being the strong side player and then Embiid in the post, and then running a lot of off-ball action for Steph, if Steph then is coming towards the ball, looking for stuff from LeBron, then you would slot Tatum basically into the role that Anthony Edwards is playing like on the second group. But in the starting group, that's Tatum. So he's the second side guy where it's just like, oh, now this guy has the ball, like on the second side. And that was Booker, and he did well. But I'm just saying, Jayson Tatum's a better player, I think, than Devin Booker. And so that's sort of why it was interesting to me that Tatum didn't play, considering Booker's not the natural small forward. He is not the natural big wing. That player got a DNP, and it was just interesting to me. All Celtic stuff aside, it's just interesting.
He is a natural at something else, though, and I think that's the reason why he's playing. Let's take a break and come back and talk about that. One of the things that I've really grown an appreciation for over the last 5 years or so is how distinct coaches can view the game, right? Like Frank Vogel has a very different way of looking at basketball than Steve Kerr, who has a very different way of looking at basketball than Darvin Ham. And they're all separate from each other in terms of what they prioritize. And so the thing that Devin Booker does do that Jayson Tatum does not is rise up into a jumper coming off of an off-ball screen. And so if you think about this from Steve Kerr's perspective, he's like, all right, I got Steph over here. I know what I'm going to run for Steph. Very easy to envision Devin Booker in the Klay Thompson role of whatever your grand offense is. And so that, I think, is kind of at the heart of, like, I find Kerr to be a fairly annoying coach in a lot of ways, who's said, but like that's the one thing a lot of them have in common is they're just stubborn goats that really believe in the shit that they believe in. And
well, the ones who have won a lot too, it's just like, you're not backing them off.
Oh God, it makes it 10 times worse, right? It's like
we saw this with Phil Jackson.
Absolutely, we did. And so, but to me, you always start with the personnel that you have. And you look around and be like, all right, these are the other, like, he doesn't have a Joel Embiid to work with in Golden State, right? With all of the good and all of the great that comes with Embiid, but also the foot speed stuff too, right? Like, I guess you could say Looney is a slow big five, but he could always just be like, I'm not going to play Looney, or just play him a shift or two. Whereas, Embiid is starting here. And so that is what I think kind of the core issue is that Steve Kerr views basketball in a certain way, especially on offense. He's won 4 rings with Steph coming off of this screen, another dude coming off of that screen on the other side. Good luck guarding it. And it's very easy to envision Devin Booker in that role, whereas that's not really Tatum's game.
100%. So I'm glad you've made the argument, because here I am now coming off of the top rope and I'm back with Kevin Durant. Is that Kevin Durant's music? I think it is. So
sure.
You know who else is going to come off a ball screen and shoot the ball? Is Kevin Durant. And so,
bro, but you're so slow. That's the whack-a-mole, is you got KD, LeBron, and Embiid next to each other.
Yes. I also think one of the reasons why you're losing or net neutral in some of these starting groups is that those groups actually aren't scoring very well.
That's right.
The half court. They're running a lot of action towards Steph, and teams are selling out to stop that. And Embiid is in the post, but FIBA is a different sort of game. You can crowd the paint. There's no defensive 3 seconds. It's easier to show help against post players. It's one of the reasons why for Team USA, Bam and AD are just ridiculous, because they get to not only be rangy defensive bigs, but they get to like just stand around the paint and just be like, yeah, go ahead and try to get downhill. We're waiting for you here. And so it's not like you can just ISO Embiid. They're sending doubles at him, and his passing, when it's crisp and sharp, it's creating open threes like on the backside. But when it's not, passes are getting deflected. There's turnovers. LeBron has been turning the ball over a little bit too, because he's forcing the ball into tight windows against defenses that are really shrinking the floor against them. You know who opens up the floor, and you can't shrink the floor against this dude, is Kevin Durant. And I would argue that all the stuff that you said about Devin Booker in the FIBA game, Durant's an even bigger and better cheat code against that. And he is a more natural wing. He is going to help out on the glass. If you're playing into the idea of our starting group is just massive and big, yes, they're slower, but okay, this starting group can be a more half-court team. Devin Booker is that anyway. They're a half-court offense team. So I'm walking you to this ledge. Talk me down.
All I'm saying is that what you just described is almost the exact opposite of Steve Kerr's basketball worldview. Let's be big and slow as shit. No, that's not how he likes to play, right?
Sure.
The way he tries to find solutions to problems is to be faster and to space the floor. He's won 4 championships playing this way. And there have been a few times watching him coach Team USA where I've been like, oh, you're trying to have this be sort of a Warriors thing. And one thing, you can't do that with very little continuity, right? Like running that style of offense, you got to work on that. It's a lot of reads. It's a lot of like fake this way, cut that way, a lot of eye contact with the teammate. Like, hey, I'm a back cut right now. And it takes some getting used to. And so that's why a Steph and a Klay and Draymond playing together year after year after year in the same system can reach results that are just impossible to reach with freaking 2 weeks of camp over the course of a summer.
100%. So this is an argument here then that I can continue to make for Kevin Durant, Pete, because you talk about the lack of continuity and this is that and the other, which is totally true. These guys have not played together at all. If I were to tell you, you get one Warrior and 2 current non-Warriors, not counting Klay because he now plays for the Mavs, but you get one current Warrior and 2 non-current Warriors. who do you think knows Steve Kerr's offense the best?
Probably Kevin Durant. Sure. I'm saying this aspect of it is I think the defensive end of how Kerr sees basketball, right?
Got you.
In terms of being able to cover ground. And I think that
I got you.
He sees a problem with the transition defense. That's part of the reason why you start 3 guards in the first place, is that the one thing Booker will do better than KD, and I'm not necessarily saying this is the correct decision, by the way, but is that he's going to get back on defense. He will run faster than Kevin Durant does at this point. And so, I think that's sort of the thought process behind it. But I think the core and the genesis of all of these talks is how Steve Kerr views basketball. And I think there's a dissonance with that and having Joel Embiid as your starting center. 2 kind of different things.
Yeah, it's very interesting because I would argue a potential starting group that includes Steph, who is Kerr's mantle. He is the rock. And Kevin Durant, who played for Kerr and won multiple championships with Kerr and understands how to sort of make those same reads and can do all the stuff that you talked about in terms of the Klay Thompson stuff. And then LeBron, who is basically like the best Draymond Green ever, right?
Yeah.
You have the sort of 3 cornerstones there of what Kerr wants to do offensively. And I'll be very interested to see the decision that Kerr makes moving forward with how good Durant played. Now, to your point earlier, Durant is like the perfect player, I think, to play next to AD and Bam.
Yep.
Because they are so good defensively that even though they bring size and there could be some potential quickness issues there as well, just in terms of, it's just like they're so good and their instincts are so elite defensively that the stuff that AD does defensively versus the things that like Embiid is doing defensively, it's night and day. And there's a reason why it's not that like, oh, AD is so much better than Joel Embiid. I prefer AD. But I think that he is for FIBA basketball, for sure. And the stuff that AD is able to do on the defensive side of the ball in terms of showing higher and still recovering back to the paint to be a rim disruptor, that's the stuff that Embiid is not able to do and isn't doing, that I think lowers the ceiling and the floor for Team USA. This isn't to say that Embiid is bad, because he's not.
No, it's not. But it's a foot speed thing, right? It's, to put it very specifically, the reason that Embiid can't show higher is because if he gets out that high, he can't recover back if he needs to in time. AD can. And that's why when you were saying like AD and Bam might have foot speed issues, I don't think so, really. Like, that's a lot of foot speed for dudes that size. In fact, I would argue like they're at least average to it being a strength for a 4 and 5 combination. And at that size that they have collectively, it's just monstrous. And so that's part of the reason why, like, KD at the 3, you can't do that foot speed wise in every group. But with those 2 monsters defensively, and he's getting buckets for them. So I really think they've found something with that trio. But I do think there are interesting conversations elsewhere.
So I'm going to close kind of where I jumped into the middle here. And it's still a question for me about whether or not Tatum is going to be like permanently excised from the rotation, or if this was just a 1-game thing. Do you have thoughts on that?
No, Kerr apparently said today that Tatum's going to play on Wednesday against South Sudan.
Oh, great. Good. I think, so my thing is Tatum should be playing. I think that he's one of the team's best 8 or 9 players for sure. And that the style that I think best suits this group includes Tatum playing. I don't think it should be at the expense of White, obviously. And it's tricky then, because then who do you not play, Tatum or Booker? It's like, that's not it to me. So I get that Kerr sort of has a playing time issue deal to a certain extent, because you need Holiday to play. I think White should be playing some too. And so I don't know where the minutes should come from, but Tatum to me is too good to not play at all. And you got to be able to find a shift or 2 for him a game, I think. Anyways, that's just my last 2 cents on that.
I think I think Ant is the other guard that's in the rotation, right? That we haven't talked about. And so, to me, Booker, and he played well in that first game. This is part of the deal, right? But I do think that down the line, I think we've hit on a couple of kind of core aspects of where the starters are struggling, how the bench is doing well, kind of where KD fits in. I think that's part of a tournament like this, right? Is finding your team and being like, okay, we are 70% of the way there. Can you adjust to that other 30%? I know Warrior fans who are going to be like, hell freaking no, Steve Kerr's not going to adjust it, at least not in time, right? There are some very tortured Warrior fans. I know, so tortured. They sound like us, right? Winning all those titles. But a coach can certainly get set in their ways when they're used to a certain type of team, and Golden State's been a unique team for a long time. And so I think there's an interesting clash between Steve Kerr's coaching philosophy and the roster that they have, and the Tatum DNP is a part of that. So catch me on Playback tonight. We've got Game 2 of the first round of the 2008 playoffs. Kobe goes for 49 against Denver. Going to be watching that at 5 p.m. Pacific time on Playback, so come join me there. If you want to support the work I do, you can do so on Patreon or buy me a coffee, Laker Film Room, and we'll catch you tomorrow, talk a little Lakers. But until then, you've been listening to Laker Film Room Podcast. We'll catch you guys next time.
James has got it in low to McHale. McHale wants to turn, he's double team. Just pass out in front, broken up by Worthy. Tip to Magic. Worthy dives on his belly. Magic scores.
There's Magic, got it. Magic fires again. They will. Lakers win the game. The Lakers win the game. Rebound is Lonnie. 3 seconds left. Van Exel to win it. It's on the way. Good!
Kobe Bryant, 48 points, 16 rebounds. Shot with his 8th block shot that ties an NBA Finals record.
A lot of Laker fans sticking around for this.
You're seeing something that's very rare indeed. A Laker to get MVP chance
in Boston. Of all places.
Are you kidding me?
Kobe, hard to believe.
Are you kidding me? Unreal. Are you kidding me?
Lakers looking to push. Bryant spinning in the lane. Back for Gasol. Pretty pass. And it's back to a 3-point game.
Kobe Bryant picked up by Bell.
There's the move. 2, 1.
Listen.
Unbelievable. For the victory. It's over.
Shot clock now to 5. Bryant. Yes.
And that was a little tap to Alvin Gentry.
Add insult to injury, Kobe. I mean, what a shot. I mean, you can't defend that. Are you kidding me?
2.1 seconds remaining. Denver a foul to give. Jokic trying to disrupt Rondo. He puts it in. Here's Davis, 4-3 in the win. Oh, it's good! Anthony Davis has won it for the Lakers! James again. Oh, he hits another one. LeBron James putting together a closing quarter against the Nuggets.
This historic 2020 NBA championship belongs to the Los Angeles Lakers. The Lakers conquer the bubble, and banner number 17 will soon hang in the rafters.
I am McCole Hartman, wide receiver for the NFL. Speeding, it's a rush on the field, in the zone where it matters. As an athlete, I push my limits to win, but when I get behind the wheel, I know the importance of slowing down for safety. Because speeding is illegal. It endangers you, your loved ones, and everyone else on the road. Did you know speeding accounts for more than 1/4 of all traffic-related fatalities nationwide? Just like we need to focus to score touchdowns and win games, we need to be in the zone and stay safe on the road. Speed limits are in place to protect everyone. No matter what the speed limit is, anything over is not only illegal, but dangerous. Like athletes, drivers must stay alert and present because there is no reward for speeding. Nothing is safe about it. Driving over the speed limit might seem like the quicker option, but speeding catches up with you. Stay focused, and in a split second, everything can change. Paid for by NHTSA.